just start putting them out. Yeah, someone said,
No, that's not good to know.
you're never going to mix them.
But
You didn't want to get them.
On Thursday. No, we'll be back. Well, Wendy will be here.
yeah, Wendy's
I'll plan on being here because we're just gonna drive up and back. So I mean, when the kids leave for school at 7, we're gonna be on the road. We should be home by like 2. If
All right, everybody, ready? Call this meeting. It's not an official meeting, it's a work session, but we're going to get started anyway. It's 5:30. As you probably noticed, I am not Mayor John Flynn, Councilmember Doug Fowler, but John called me this morning and he has something, illness, trying to figure out what it is. He's okay, but he definitely did not feel well for sure. So he asked me if I would fill in for him. Obviously I am. So kind of an informal meeting. We're going to go through the agenda. You know, we don't vote on anything tonight. We don't have public comment or reply or anything like that. This is just supposed to really be for the council to ask any questions about our current agenda, you know, that's on the plate for us. So I'm going to start off with new business. It is an ordinance amending the 2024 city budget to appropriate an additional $132,849 to the information technology budget, to accommodate unforeseen expenses related to a cybersecurity incident, corrective actions, and improvements. So we have Mr. John of our IT department here.
Hello.
And he's going to take us through why the $132,000 is a necessary appropriation.
Sure. Yeah, thank you for having me here. Yeah, so what I have proposed is a combination of two things, really. It is work that was performed as an emergency response to our cyber incident, and then some improvements that we think we can make to help things be even more secure in the future. And what I'm looking at right now is this summary sheet. It's just kind of a short list that summarizes the total. So one of those first items is the amount of forensic investigation that we had performed. The second item is the amount of recovery aid that we paid for. And the third item is a specialized form of tech support. We had some issues getting our court system back online, and we had to reach out to the vendor that provides our court system, and had some billable hours there. The next three items were overtime, and the reason that is separate, which I'll explain in a minute how the insurance works, but the insurance has a certain negotiated rate that they're willing to pay, and they're not willing to pay anything above that rate. So any of these overtime hours that we ask for are being billed separately. And then the rest of the items, after the overtime items, are improvements that we think will improve our security here as well as help maintain our facilities. And I'll give you a little bit of information from the Municipal League. I've been in constant contact with the Municipal League, and Jeff Melton, the IT director of the Municipal League, has been a great resource throughout this whole process. So we're very confident that the cyber insurance we have through the Municipal League will reimburse those first three items. That they should reimburse the investigation straight time, the recovery straight time, as well as the support on virtual justice. And more good news is there's a new cyber response board at the state level. And Jeff Melton is going to advocate for us in their November meeting So he believes he could get the overtime paid for out of the fund that we pay into at the Cyber Response Board. So that's kind of why on the summary sheet, I have these two different totals. Yes, we are asking for, $132,000 amendment so we can get the vendors paid, we can pay for the things that were performed. But then we do expect a large portion of that to be repaid through insurance and the cyber funding. So, any additional questions? Yeah, Jerry?
So the insurance policy that we had I thought to cover this kind of a situation, is that right or wrong?
Yes, it is. That's right. Yeah.
We did have that insurance policy.
Yes.
So, how much in addition, that insurance policy, I don't remember what the amount was now, but like a couple $100,000, wasn't it?
I believe they said it would cover up to $1 million.
But it'd cover us up to $1 million.
Yeah.
So, we haven't been out any expenses other than this additional 132, is that right?
Correct. Yeah, we haven't paid really for anything yet, but it's the recommendation of the insurance company that we go ahead and pay the vendors for the work they performed during the outage, and then they'll issue a reimbursement. But that process could be lengthy, so to be fair to the vendor, they recommend we pay it up front and then we get reimbursed.
Okay, I understood that this policy or this coverage that we have was supposed to keep us from getting to this point, is that right?
No, the insurance just protects you in the event that something happens, like, just like your car insurance,
Well, I thought we had a coverage with some company that provided a cyber security type service, did we not?
Yes, we did, yeah. Yeah, and they were absolutely lifesaver in this event, because they called me at home, alerted me something strange was going on. They took containment actions and things, so yeah, they were a huge benefit during this, yeah.
Okay. So without them, we would have been catastrophe.
It could have been, yes. Yeah.
I guess my only question is, how did we get here?
Yeah, I think the answer to that is the full investigation report is still being written. And if you would like, I could invite you to the briefing whenever they complete the report. But, a lot of these attacks are getting very sophisticated, and a lot of times you're facing nation states like Russia, North Korean military, Chinese military, Iran, are some of the most well-known threat actors out there. So a lot of these attacks are getting very, very sophisticated. So, certainly they could attack us at any time. But like I said, the security that we had in place did alert us. It did take containment actions and did limit the damage to a pretty minimal amount.
Well, they're getting really creative in the way that they try to worm their way in, aren't they? I mean, they can
Yes.
find the smallest windows
Yeah.
that you don't even consider,
Mhm.
that you wouldn't even think could be vulnerable. But you are.
Yeah.
It's not like they try to just come right into your server necessarily. I mean, directly, you know what I mean? They
Right.
find another way in,
Yeah.
back doors, to get to those servers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, I would encourage, anybody that's interested, we could invite you to review the investigation report, once it's finalized. But I don't think it's a good idea for me to stand here in a public forum and say, well, here's how I think you can get to Bella Vista. You attack this, and you attack this, and here's how we're weak,
I understand, and agree.
Yeah, so certainly I'm, willing to talk to anybody one-on-one, or we can invite you to the debriefing from the investigator.
Yeah, I'd like that, absolutely.
Okay.
I'd like that for sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any further questions or anything? No? Okay.
All right.
Anyway, hey, good job. Seriously, everybody.
Thank you. Yeah, it's certainly very stressful, and you feel all the emotions, stress, embarrassment, or whatever, but, for whatever it's worth, compare us to like NWAC or something, we were down just a very fractional amount of time. So I felt like we were well prepared for it, not perfectly prepared. But, that's what this is about, is getting to that next step and trying to go from good to great.
Plug the hole in the dam, right?
That's right, yeah.
So we will be better prepared should this happen again?
Oh, certainly, yes. If we complete the things proposed here, yeah, we'll be in better shape, for sure.
Yeah, and the mayor already mentioned this in a prior meeting, but, so, thank you very much to you guys here locally and your team, everybody that pitched in. But, the broader message is, we had a lot of other cities call up and offer to pitch in and help us, clean these different machines and really cut down on the time that you guys had to spend doing it yourself. So, and, it's a terrific way everybody banded together and worked together.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely appreciate it, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. But anybody else? Anybody have any further questions? Okay. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, okay. All right. Moving on to item D, ordinance amending the Bella Vista zoning ordinance and map to rezone property described in rezoning petition number 2024-55647, county parcel number 16-7022600-003, from R1 residential single family district to C1 neighborhood commercial district. This is a property that's located near East Lancashire Boulevard and Nature Trail Lane. But this is, like you said, the trail where the parking lot is. And it's a property that encompasses the surrounding area around that, right? The surrounding parcel around all of that. Yes, please.
Okay.
I think so. I think that's a good idea. Yes.
So this is Canyon Creek Nature Trail, and what we're finding is the parking lot at that location is insufficient. People are parking everywhere in front of the neighborhood homes, in front of their driveways, on their lawns. They're calling the police, and when they park on both sides, you can't get a emergency vehicle through. So we are currently, the city passed the ordinance which allows us to do the temporary parking on the grass, but at some point we'd like to go from grass to asphalt, and to do that we would have to go to C1. We're just looking at the area, the existing parking lot plus the additional area that is where we would place the new added parking lot. Does that make sense?
By the gazebo?
By the gazebo, but it's more that grassy area that's roped in right now. We don't want to touch anything to do with the trails. We love the trails, have no interest in doing anything other than expanding the parking lot. The other objections we've heard, and we've addressed these last year when we went and did those 25 rezonings, we're not looking to develop any commercial down there. We're not going to sell the property. It's near impossible for the POA to sell property. So none of those concerns are really warranted. We're just trying to expand the parking lot.
Any questions? The only thing I would say, I'm not talking as like the mayor. I'm talking about as a city council member. And I did it today. I would just encourage you, just don't look at the map. I think most everyone does, but really go take a look at that property down there. A lot of it really can't be developed into anything anyway. The way from what this rezoning area is, So, because I know we had a couple people that sent in letters voicing concerns. I don't know that I really see a lot personally, but so this is one of those you really have to put your eyes on. So, Anybody have any questions?
And staff was
Yes, staff was
recommended a
supportive.
favorable, and planning commission also.
Right. Okay. All right. Tom, you might just want to stay there because you are the next couple as well. So this is item E, ordinance amending the Bella Vista zoning ordinance and map to rezone property described in rezoning petition number 2024-55729, county parcel number 16-03465-000, from R1 residential single family district to C1 neighborhood commercial district. I don't know if I got the right one here. I printed them all out, but I think I got my stuff mixed up. Is that the one with the parking lot, or is that the one with the water tower? Okay, that's the one, 2 Kingsdale Lane.
So this one, we've got to apologize. We thought we had taken care of this last year. If you recall, we rezoned the Kingsdale Clubhouse building last year to C1 commercial. We also rezoned the upper parking lot, kind of the flat area where they park the golf carts when they're trailer in. I missed that there's a small sliver between the two. Was going through GIS a couple months ago and realized I had missed it. Having it R1, that little sliver between those makes absolutely no sense. Once again, we're not looking to sell, do anything. We're not looking to develop anything. It just would make a lot better sense to have that as C1.
Okay. Questions? This is another one too that I guess went before the planning commission. And
Planning Commission recommended it, and
Yeah, and
staff did also.
Okay. Any questions on that one? Nope. All right. Let me get to the right page here. Okay. F on the agenda, ordinance amending the Bella Vista zoning ordinance and map to rezone property described in rezoning petition number 2024-55458, a portion of county parcel number 16-18693-000 from R1 residential single family district to C1 neighborhood commercial district. Yeah, so you had brought this before the planning commission once before, right?
This came before the planning commission last year and it was turned down. Some of the reasons that we were told is, let me back up. The purpose of this is the water tower that is currently at that location will within 5 years be insufficient based upon the amount of growth that's occurring in that area. So we're going to have to add an additional water tower that's a high point, which you have to have the water tower at a high location. The area is rather large, and one of the reasons that was brought up that it was denied last year was because they wanted more of a buffer between the commercial and the residential properties to the east. So what we did was we did a meets and bounds, and we basically divided the property in two and said, okay, you want a buffer? Well, we won't rezone the east side. It's all valley anyways. You can't do anything with it anyways. That'll remain residential. The west side will, that's where the flattest ground is, which is closest to the existing water tower. We'll rezone that as commercial, so that's what we're requesting. It was recommended by staff. It went to the planning commission, was approved by a split vote.
Larry? No, I was just going to say, I drove out there today, and it is a large tract of land. And when you drive around to Leland and you drive back down in there, the current water tower now, maybe if there are no leaves in the fall, the summer, the winter, maybe you can see the water tower from that subdivision back down behind. Otherwise, you can't even see it. There's a little road that drives up to it. It's hidden. And I would assume that this one would probably be very similar.
Yeah, if you look at the site on GIS, you can see that the water tower is just a little spot in between all the trees. We would, the new one would be of a similar size or a little bit larger, would be surrounded by trees, and so would be well hidden also. Plus, it'd be close to the road, which would make sense, and it wouldn't be as close to the neighbors to the east.
Larry?
The tower that you have there now is what, 250,000 gallons?
I don't know.
What are you proposing to build there? How big?
What I've been told is that within the next 5 years.
Hang on. When we're talking about rezoning, we really can't go into what development plans are. We're talking about,
I'm just
I
curious.
know you're curious,
I'll talk
but there, but a lot of that's, but we don't want to run afoul of any legal
Yeah,
requirements,
okay.
okay? I think Taylor may have some information, at least in terms of that prior rezoning. It wasn't to C1, was it?
No, it was actually to C2, so the use was a little too intense. So they've returned, waited a year since it's expired. They knocked it down to C1 after further discussion with staff, which is a little bit more aligned with that area and what's the existing uses to the south and to the east already. And then, of course, he went a step above that and provided an east 2-acre buffer to remain there, keep the zoning as it is. And rezoning it commercial would have additional screening requirements when they do decide to develop this into something that's not a single-family home.
We want it to fit in with the environment, but we know that, I'm not a water expert. We have, you know, a superintendent that's in charge, a director that's in charge of that. On our long-range planning, we'll need to add additional water resources in about the 5-year range. As to what additional means, if you want me to find out, I can find out, but I don't know enough about capacity and so forth.
It's in your plan.
I just told we need more, so we're trying to accommodate that. And we're planning way in advance, and we like being able to approach the community this far in advance so that there's no surprises. We don't, you know, we want to be honest about what we want, what we need to accomplish over there.
Just an observation, I've built water mains in subdivisions, new subdivisions, and if you come in after the houses are there, there's a big uproar. If you build it before the houses are there, everybody just, that's the way it is.
Yeah.
Probably. Just a tremendous amount of growth on the east side.
Okay, is that it? Anybody have any further questions? We good? All right, thank you, Tom, appreciate it. Okay, item G on the agenda, ordinance amending various sections of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Bella Vista to provide for renaming of the Department of Community Development Services to the Department of Planning and Development, providing for reorganization, declaring an emergency, and for other purposes. Taylor, you want to speak to it?
Yeah, I'll start, and then if Fire has anything they can add, or John, or whoever. This has been a collective effort, basically, but essentially the exhibit you have with the report is a very specific, just complete summary of what all is being proposed, all the way from the very tippy top of the ordinance all the way to the end of the development ordinance. So I believe we start in section 12 or section 16, work our way all the way down to 109. And through various changes, it's basically clerical cleanups. There were a few code that weren't changed in June of 2023 that still call us the Department of Planning and Code Enforcement. We haven't been that department in a long time. So those have been cleaned up, kind of redesigning what is already being done, such as like temporary structure, temporary storage containers. That's been fixed and cleaned up. And then of course you'll see over and over in red is just the renaming, planning and development. So modernizing the name. We don't really even have a community development division within community development. Typically your CDS department has a community development block grant program, as well as financial assistance, HUD programs, things like that. And we don't have that. We've never had that. So kind of getting a little bit more in line as to what our department is, which is planning and development, and fixing that and cleaning that up. I don't foresee us getting a CDBG program anytime soon, or HUD program. So that's the intent of that. Fire is going to be taking over the rest of the building division. So there is some minor tweaks in here to address that. Really, most of the code in Chapter 103 was already written to have that change anyway, because it just says the city throughout the building code that we've adopted and written that is supplemental to the building code that we've already adopted. But technically right now we have 2 building divisions within the city. One of them is within planning and development, and the other is within the fire department. So with this change, we're proposing to clean that up and get all of the building divisions within one, with the chief building official as the permit technicians and plans examiners are technically the deputies of the chief building official. So it just makes more sense to have them all together. So that's just a minor cleanup too, and that will help streamline the reporting process, as well as just interdepartmental administrative in-house things that happen as well from just day-to-day on a staff point of view. And that's really the overarching summary of this, mainly just a clerical cleanup, both in-house and in writing. I don't know if Wolfgang wants to add to that.
So, my question is, there are other large cities, not maybe as large as ours, and maybe larger than ours in northwest Arkansas. Are any of them organized in the fashion that you're being proposed here?
We'll be pretty similar to Bentonville and Springdale.
So Bentonville currently has their inspection department and fire,
And their building reviews,
and the what?
and the building plan reviews, all
The
report to the
building
fire
and the plan
department.
review, the total planning process is in there, as opposed to just the inspection portion of the planning department, the permits department, rather. Right now, the inspection portion of permits
Is in the fire department.
And you're proposing now with this, that would move the permits portion of that.
The people that
fire.
schedule all their inspections on a day-to-day basis, that do their intake process for them, just go ahead and get them with them.
So
basically.
Bentonville does this now?
Huh?
Bentonville
Oh,
does
they've
this?
been like this for a while, yeah.
They have? Who else? Anybody else?
Springdale's pretty close. Rogers has planning and engineering, I believe, yeah, their fire department also oversees building as well, yeah.
You know, you're good? Okay, so we're just recognizing the changes right now, and we're cleaning up our code, right? So an organizational structure, reporting structure, that'll follow this.
Correct. I mean, we want the name to be official, and we want the tiny words here and there, and like the old ones, where we're not even the right department anyway, to be cleaned up before we do this. That's the other thing too, this aligned perfectly, well, one, just getting us all streamlined and all together in like one, or the building, I'm not one of them technically, but getting all the building department within the same department was a high importance time-wise, but they're also moving to be with them physically on November 1st. So that's the other portion as well. So we will be closed on November 1st for that move. We've sent out a couple media releases, but November 1st, CDS will be moving over, or the permitting portion will be moving over to be with the rest of the fire department. And they'll be open to the public on November 4th.
All right, you know, we made some big changes in the city, you know, with that department for sure, and, you know, kind of like a new sheriff in town, right? And had some different ideas, and I'm sure you researched it. I'm talking about the mayor. He's comfortable with it, and I think I had a little conversation with him about it, and I said, you know what, you're the CEO, you know, you're the president of the city government here, and, you know, if you think these moves are appropriate, you know, then we're going to move forward with it. You know, I don't know what the city council's role would really be in kind of like questioning that, because I can't do all the legwork and all the homework, so we're just going to have to trust that this is the correct way to go, the right direction, right? So, yeah, hope it works well, hope it's successful.
I'd like to ask for an organizational chart, a box diagram, you know, organizational chart with titles and
I
number
have
of
one.
people. And,
I brought one tonight just in case
well,
you guys have asked.
what I'd like to see is before we split off code and inspection, to see it how it was then, and then see what it is in that step in between.
So you
And
want
then see it
before
in the
June
final. I'd
2023
like to see where
diagram?
we've transitioned
Okay.
in a diagram that shows all of that pieces.
Okay. I did bring a diagram of our current layout and then post this approval, but I will add a third diagram that was before June of
That backs up
2023.
to take us to where we are today before
Okay.
we do any moves.
I can add that.
I'd like to see that. And I'd like to, I don't know how big it can be, if you can print them out on 11 by 17, or whether they got to be bigger than that.
Well, I have a PowerPoint over there just in case, so I could do the same thing at the district court as well.
But having a picture, I'd like to see a hard copy, please.
Okay,
Yeah.
that sounds good.
Are we good? All right, thank you, Taylor, appreciate it. All right, item H, resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to enter into a contract with the National Auto Fleet Group pursuant to a Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing Agreement for the purchase of one 2024 Ford Super Duty F-350 four-wheel drive truck in an amount not to exceed $65,000 for use by the police department. Captain Cook, you want to give us an overview?
This is to increase the towing and hauling capacity of the fleet for the police department. Over the years, we've had to encompass doing a lot more things than just natural patrolling duties, and this will give us the capability for that. I'll try not to go too deep in the weeds. We didn't have our first truck in the fleet until 2011. We purchased a Chevy half-ton then. Before that, we were having to haul things and SUVs and stuff. That truck then, we tried to haul it for some towing across country, burned the transmission out of it. When 2014, we purchased a Dodge half-ton pickup with a larger motor that I currently still drive. It didn't have the towing capacity quite we needed. I towed a van that the IT department currently has out in Missouri, and it was too much for that truck. It was overloaded. So we then purchased 2 years ago a 3/4 ton Dodge pickup with a gas motor. Well, we're making trips now to Colorado, Arizona, Virginia and everything. On those long trips, that is now affecting the transmission in that truck, where it has a hard time doing, and then with the gas motor and the loads and the current change by the administration on executive orders has greatly affected our ability to procure items where we can no longer do it on site acquisitions anymore. So this makes us where if we know we're going a certain direction, that we find everything applicable that the police department can use, which makes our loads larger when we come back. So we greatly need a 1-ton that gives us a larger capability capacity, and we also need the diesel motor, because when we hit hills and stuff with the gas motor, we're down to out on the interstates running at 40, 45 miles an hour until we hit flat, the ground levels off.
Wasn't this an issue that came up before? Is this the second vehicle like this that you're acquiring?
No,
This is the first one?
this is the first,
But the chief talked about this earlier in the year.
yes, yeah, he probably was talking about it that.
I don't know if it was an amendment to the budget or what the program was.
No, it wasn't an amendment to the budget. We're using the money that we're.
Because he talked about this particular vehicle, that you had a need for that because of everything you've explained so far.
Yes, so when we build out our budget and our need and transitions out our vehicles and everything, this is actually to replace, that was intent just to replace my pickup that has 141,000 miles on it. Well, the need is greater for us to have this because that truck that's 2 years old, we're already affecting the transmission and hit. So we decided to use the money to replace my truck to buy this truck and not do what we did to the previous vehicle, because.
Well, it makes good sense for you to travel that far and have a little more horsepower under the hood. It's not the horsepower, it's really the pulling capacity that you get out of the diesel.
Well, it is. We took that Chevy truck to Virginia and towed a boat back, and it burnt that transmission out of that truck. So, and that's what we're afraid of now. And Dwayne's voiced his concerns about our 3/4 ton that we currently use, that we're doing the same thing with the loads that we're pulling.
Is the 350 going to be big enough?
Yes. Yeah, it's definitely going to be big enough to be able to pull. What we're looking at is we're going to get probably a 30-foot tandem axle gooseneck trailer to help with the loads that we're carrying, which I think will definitely help better than some of the trailers that we've been doing, because we've been having to rent some of the trailers and everything. So.
Because Ford has a 450 and a 550 and a 650, so you can go up a little bit in terms of capability of hauling, pulling.
Yes. We're trying to do it's everything you think. You want to spend the least amount of money possible to effectively do what you need to. And that's what we thought we'd done in the past, and we really thought that 3/4 ton we bought was going to do it, but it was clear that it was not enough truck, so.
Jared?
So, you say you're making trips to Arizona and Virginia, and what's the purpose of those trips?
It's part of the LESO program. So it's military, it's stuff that the military no longer uses that the police can have. And it's, the only cost is us going and getting the items. And the items are listed at DMLA, which after a year, then it belongs to the city. And then there's controlled items. So controlled items are like our MRAP, our Hummer, the robots that we have. D-Mill A items are tons of items that you all have probably seen around the city. I said one earlier was the van I went and got. It's a Chevy van. We used it for our SWAT vehicle for a few years, and then we let the IT department have it. We've got some generators back. We gave one to the street department, along with several tools. We also have 8 four-wheelers we use in search and rescue, UTVs, other tools and equipment. We've gotten boats, motors. If y'all ever want to see what we try to do, what we're trying to do is use a program that the government has where it reduces the cost that the city has to spend, where we can accomplish some things. And it's become a lot harder on us now because of the executive order that changed on-site requisitions for us. So we got to do a lot of forethought planning before we take off on those trips.
What do you mean the executive order changed what did it change? What did it do?
Well, so used to, we could go, let's just say, one we go to a lot is Fort Riley up in Kansas. It would make it where we could say we put in for a pickup, and we go up there to get that truck, and while we're at the site, we see some other things that would be beneficial. We could do an on-site rec at that time, and a lot of times get those items that day, get them approved and through the system. We can no longer do that. So what they have is called a cycle. It's a 14-day cycle section. So if we find a big item that we really want to drive the distance for, then we see and it gets awarded, then we look at other things at that site or other military bases that have the LESO sites, and we make it where it's more valuable, worth our trip to go there and get those. But we have to do that prior to, and that makes our loads end up being larger because we're making fewer trips and we're hauling more back. Hopefully that makes sense what I'm trying to say.
What would you say is the value of all the merchandise or the items that you have gotten from the city?
Well, the government, federal government, puts those dollar amounts out there. Now, the dollar amounts that they have, I'm sure is what they paid for. I think they're astronomical in cost. But like that MATV out there, I think they have it valued at $850,000. The Hummer, I think, was valued at $220,000 that we have. Now, of course, that was when they bought it brand new. This stuff isn't brand new anymore. I know that one of the tool sets that we have out there, I think, was valued at $35,000. So, I mean, we've probably, and this is just a wag, I bet we've close to $4 million worth of stuff through this program. It's a very valuable program. And if y'all would like more information about it and want to come up here sometime, I'll gladly show you around. Some of the items, again, after a year becomes the city of Bella Vista's property, and then we can give those items to other departments inside the city, or then we sell the items off that are no longer of use to us. We had a Ford pickup, a 1-ton Ford pickup that we sold, that we used for a couple of years. So
The 4-wheel drives that you acquired, those were LESO items, weren't they?
What?
ATVs?
Yes.
The 4-wheel drive.
Yep.
I don't know if it's a 4-wheel drive or not, but probably.
Yeah, you probably saw, when we had the kayaker in the creek down there, all that was basically LESO equipment that you saw down there. Our command vehicle that we have, that's another LESO piece of equipment. So.
Interesting. Okay. Anybody else have anything? No? All right, thank you, Kathy. Appreciate it. Okay, item I, resolution approving a health insurance and benefit plan for city employees to begin January 1, 2025. Linda?
I have all kinds of good news tonight.
All right.
The first thing that you can see, I think you've all got that packet in your packet, where it's kind of a summary of our health and welfare and life benefits. First good news is we have rate holds on everything except the health insurance this year, or the medical insurance. So even though we were at the end of our 2-year rate hold that we were given when we went with Mutual of Omaha, they're going to extend that another year. So our life rates, the life, dental, and vision will all stay the same for next year. So no increases to the city or to the employees. The medical plan, we've also been doing really great on that. As you know, in 2024, we moved to a self-funded plan from a fully insured plan. And one of the things we said at that time was, we're making assumptions based on actuarial numbers that we were given by Brown & Brown and by the company that we're working with, which is Pareto, to come up with what we anticipated our real costs would be. Because now when somebody files a claim, we pay for it dollar for dollar. Every week, how that works is every week I get a notification that says you have this many dollars in claims, we're going to sweep that out of your bank account. So we've got those expenses every week, and then on top of that we have monthly premiums that are due for the processing of the claims, basically. When we went into that program, we decided to go with a 2-year rate hold on the admin fees, which are for the processing of the claims. Stop loss is something we do have to get a new rate on every year, because that is based on actual claims. Did we hit a stop loss for an individual of 100,000? Did we hit a pooled amount of 250,000? So they look at our plan every year, and that's part of the admin fees. We are having an increase in that stop loss insurance, but because it's only a portion of the plan, we're looking at a 4% increase for next year. And just a little history on the last few years. 2022, we were very fortunate. We did not have an increase that year. 2023, we had a 27% increase. 2024, we had a 29% increase. So we're looking at only a 4% for next year. Some more good news is we looked at year-to-date. What have we paid out? What have we collected from employees? What have we set aside as an employer premium, even though that's just a number that an actuary comes up with. And we are ahead of the game by $244,000 right now. We've been running about $200,000 in the black every month from what we're setting aside as an employer, what the employees are contributing versus what we're really spending every month. That's kind of been our goal, obviously, is not to have to come back to you and say, we're not collecting enough money, we need more money in the budget. We don't have to do that. In fact, we're ahead of the game at this point. The reason we're going to go with that 4% increase is because we need to continue to be ahead of the game. If we end up having somebody who has a $100,000 claim, we need to make sure the funds are in that account to cover that. Does that all make sense? I know that's a lot, but it's just, it's completely the opposite of,
29%.
pardon me?
4% beats 29%.
Yes, we're very much in the black. We're very happy about that. I think the employees would be happy about that as well. We also are very happy to have gotten this information back earlier than usual. Every year since I've been here, we've had to have a special council meeting, and this year it's exciting just to be able to be at a regular meeting and be able to talk about this. So things are looking good. It does take about 15 to 18 months to really know exactly where you're at, because the first few months, claims kind of lag behind reality. For example, January, we didn't have any funds pulled from our account for claims because it takes that long to process. So
Are you about?
no, go ahead and ask questions.
No, I was going to just ask about a self-funded plan, right? Rather than versus like going with the insurance company and then funding, et cetera. But if you're not finished yet, I'll wait till you're done.
No, go ahead.
So, it sounds like a self-funded plan could be really risky, right? If you have right? I mean, it's, you're really leaning into something there. So whenever we moved to this was last year, right? Like how many employees and contributions, you know, what the break even? I mean, do you have to have a certain number of employees to be able to even think about something like this?
It used to be a lot more like that. We're seeing, I talk like I'm an insurance agent, I'm not, but they're seeing more and more smaller companies go this way because premiums have increased to such a degree that people almost have to take the risk. One of the things that was built into the assumption of where a stop loss would be for next year, which is creating this 4% increase, is based on they anticipate that overall medical expenses are going to increase. You know, when you go to your doctor and it costs X dollars, they anticipate 9% is going to be the minimum that those are going to increase for next year. So, you know, how do you beat the game? Because it's kind of all about that. And that's what that stop loss is all about, is protecting us from that huge claim that we can't afford. We won't spend more than $100,000 on any one person's claim. So,
Have we had to use that at any point?
no.
But yet they're still gonna raise our rate?
Yes, because there's also that grouping of claims up to that $250,000.
So is that stop loss, the $100,000, is that like per occurrence, per individual?
Per individual.
So even
How-
if you could have 4 or 5 or 6 of those,
But it
right?
can't, it still can't go over the 250 combined.
I got
So
you.
we could have
Okay.
2.5 people,
Right,
well,
okay.
2 1/4 people essentially.
Right.
No, it'd be 2.5, sorry, I can't add.
I mean, this is just a side note, right? My late wife, she had Crohn's disease, 19 years old. Our whole entire adult life, we had to deal with it. I saw some huge medical bills. You know, be in the hospital a week, 2 weeks at a time, major surgeries and things like that. And that's what I'm thinking about, right?
Yeah,
Is
it
I'm
could happen.
experienced. So it doesn't take a lot. But if we have a $250,000 total stop loss
Mm-hmm.
with this plan that we have, okay.
Yeah,
But if you were just going, right, and you didn't have a stop loss.
oh,
then
exactly, you could never do
There's
it.
no way.
You couldn't take that kind of risk.
Right, okay.
And that's part of the Pareto model too, is we're not doing this on our own. We're kind of a consortium of employers who all of our money is pooled in addition to the money that we're setting aside. Our admin money goes towards that consortium. So that's part of how they rate our stop loss too, is the group that we're in there. So we do have a much larger protection there overall than even just the city, so.
I'm sorry, I have one more question. So we're talking about the city and self-funded, et cetera. Now, I picked up more details of the plan, I think, this time than I maybe did before. But it's a competitive cost for our employees, though, versus an insurance plan going with Aetna or
Yeah.
somebody like that, right? I mean, all of the individual costs are competitive with, even if we would not go to the stop loss, if we would go with a major provider.
Yeah, and the thing is, those big claims you're talking about, when you're on a fully insured plan, all of those big claims like that are a direct hit to us. And it sounds like, well, they are now too, but we still have that $250,000 umbrella that protects us, as well as this larger group that we're mixed in with. So, I hope that all makes sense.
So my question for you is, the group that we're in, is that a group of businesses as well as government units?
Both. Mhm.
It is.
In
So-
fact, Springdale is in the same group that we're in.
So that's the other municipal group that's in there, municipal company that's in there?
Yeah, that's in this area. I think there are some others too. I think there's one for sure in Missouri.
So are the members, the group members, do they have similar numbers of employees or
Not-
classification of risk level?
I don't even know how they choose which one they put us in. Maybe it's based on claims, maybe
So-
it's
so how
average
do-
ages, I don't know.
How do we get put into there? How do,
The Pareto, the corporate, the top corp that this is really all through, determines that based on, when we went into this plan, they got a lot of data from us on what our claims were over the last 3 years. So that's all how
So
they.
that's how they grouped it, put us in a group that we're kind of
Yeah.
fit together.
Yeah.
And I have another question for you, but I'll talk with you afterwards. I think I have a number that looks like it's doubled. And so I'll talk with you afterwards and I'll take your
Okay.
time now.
Yeah, but if you all have it in the packet, it's a little bit confusing at the bottom, but I want to kind of explain those numbers at the bottom of this spreadsheet.
Which sheet?
The second page, well, I don't know what page it's going to be in your packet.
That's the health insurance part.
Yeah.
That's the 2025 medical plan recommended premiums and projected costs.
Okay, so at the top, if you look over to the left, that was all of our 2024 numbers. From the total cost, what we set aside as an employer per plan, and then what the employees paid for each, for that plan for the month. And then the next column there in highlighted in yellow is the per check cost. So the next, over to the right, the 2025 rates, that's what we're proposing for this year. As you can see, the employees' rates are going up very little with this 4%. We have two different plans. That's not changing. The high deductible plan and then the copay plan are the same plans we have now. At the bottom, what we did is looked at, okay, how many people are enrolled right now? What plans are they enrolled in? And any additional headcount that we might be requesting for next year. Added those things together and then took a 4% increase. So that's that 1.8 million basically. And then the employees portion would be approximately 450,000. Of course, these are never exact numbers because employees come and go, people get married, people have babies, so they can change their policies throughout the year. That next line down at the bottom, the employer HSA, that is based on what we are contributing to health reimburse or health savings accounts for anybody that's in the high deductible plan right now. We're not going to change the amount that we're going to contribute towards employees, but based on the number of head counts in the family plans versus single plan and what we contribute right now, that's about $109,000, a little over that. That amount of money does not go to fund the plan. Those monies go and they're set aside into the employee's health savings account for them to use for their personal expenses for their medical. And that's only if they're in the high deductible plan.
So is that something the employee joins as the health savings account?
If they choose the high deductible plan, the city automatically puts some money in that account for them.
Puts them in that health savings
Yes,
account?
because they're paying first dollars. They don't have a copay. Like if they go to the doctor and it costs $180,
Yeah,
they don't pay $35 like somebody in the copay plan. They pay the full $180.
right.
So that helps them fund that. That also helps keeps the number of upfront costs to the plan outside of the plan because it's all the employee's cost. So that's where that rationale comes from for funding that.
So do we have any employees that are over age 65?
Yeah.
And are they in the HSA?
No.
No.
No, we know that. We know that rule. Well, it depends. It depends if they're in, if one of them is on Medicare or if they're on Medicare, if they can't have an HSA.
Yeah, so if you're not on Medicare and you're in an employer plan, you can still contribute to an HSA.
Yes.
right?
Not if
Yes.
you're 60, over 65.
If you're not on
You just-
Medicare,
If you're 65 and over, you can't contribute to an HSA.
If you don't enroll in Medicare Part A, you can. It's
I don't
Medicare.
think you can contribute anyway to an HSA. You can have one. You can have one from earlier years, but you can't start a new one. You can see, I want to check on that, but I ran into that once.
So the next line down, where we're looking at 1,946,000, that's the employer 2025 assumed funding plus the HSA expense. So that's what comes out of the city's pocket. That number below that, the 2,286,904, that does not include that 109. This is amount of money we will be using to fund the claims that come in and the premiums we owe. So it's the employer, where it says money funding claims payments, plus to the right, money funding claims payments from the employee make up that 2,286,000. And the rest of it's just for information.
Jared?
Have you ever done a comparison as to the claims submitted versus the premiums that we pay?
Yes, that's where we're at right now is, that's what I was talking about earlier. So if you take all of the money we actually paid out, and the amounts we're setting aside as premiums, and then also take out the amount that we're having to pay for administrative fees for like the stop loss insurance and things, we have $244,488 in reserves.
In the black?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
in reserves, yeah.
That's for 24 so far?
Pardon me?
Is that for 24 so far?
Yes, that was through, I believe, the 8th of October. Yeah, October 8th.
244?
Mm-hmm. And we've been running that about most of the year, so that's good
We're in the
news.
black, 244,000? Okay.
For this year?
Yeah.
For the healthy year?
Because that's a good number for us if we're looking at the possibility of the 250,000.
Still 2.5 months left in the year. Kind of chicken dip.
Well, you know, and one of the things that's frightening is, like, we now see what the money was spent on. And we don't necessarily get a list of people's names, but we see this was for like a surgery and this was for medications. The medications costs are ridiculous. It's ridiculous. We have one prescription drug that is running over $20,000 a month.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Larry?
We had talked about a wellness program to help offset some of our costs, or thought to offset some of our costs. Is that still ongoing? Or?
Yes, we have several things built into the program, and we're looking at adding another one this year. But there's something called the KISS program, and what it is if you go to particular participating physicians or imaging places, the employee doesn't pay anything to get the procedure or the imaging done, and the city still saves money. So it's an incentive to the employee and an incentive to the city to try to direct those people to those programs. So there are things like that. There's a cancer care program where they try to get involved early on when there's been a cancer diagnosis to try to help direct the people to the right specialist, to the right kind of treatments, looking at the whole big picture of what's going on with that individual.
So who provides that direction? Is that the folks who manage our program?
That, well, we kind of can pick and choose what we want of those. There are tons of programs, kind of too many for us to get involved in all of them because it's too confusing to the employees. You know, you've got to be able to have them understand, or to some degree, or they're not going to want to get involved, because a lot of it is a voluntary participation, like that KISS program. We can tell them it's there, but we can't make them go there. So, yeah, we're every year we'll be looking at those kinds of programs to see if there's a way to save more money.
Okay, is that it? Everybody good? Satisfied? All right, thank you, Glenda. And I believe you're going to stay up, right? Discussion items.
Okay.
Pardon me?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jay, pension treatment for volunteer police and firefighters, Human Resources Director, Linda Keller.
Okay, so a request was made by the police department to increase the program for our volunteers. And right now, we have 2 employees who volunteer their time. One volunteers in the fire department and one volunteers in the police department. We currently have lot fee plan 3 for our volunteers, which costs us $6 per month per employee, or per volunteer, excuse me. If we move it up to plan 4, it will cost us $26 per month per volunteer, which is only $480 to increase the program. The benefit is to the employee, and it's not huge, but it's something. It turns out to be about $55 a month extra to their lot fee benefits that they will get if they volunteer for at least 10 years, or if they've been in another lot fee program. It also has reciprocity with APERS, so they can get credit from APERS as well. So somebody who's been working for another city somewhere in a position where they had APERS, they've got X credit for that. If they volunteer for us, then they get more years of service credit for every month that they volunteer for us. And then we also can increase their eventual benefit when they retire. So from $6 to $26 per month per volunteer. That's really about all I have to say.
How many volunteers? 2 total.
Total.
Okay, all right. I thought that.
It's not huge.
When you first said that, I thought it was like 2 volunteers representing the volunteers. You're just saying when you
It's
said
just
2.
2 total.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were they former employees?
So this is
Or
kind of the.
former city employees from somewhere else?
No, as I understand it, no, you probably know this better than I do. So Chuck McLean,
Let's not talk about particular employees.
I'm sorry.
It's not even.
We have someone in the fire department who's been a volunteer for a very long time. We have an employee who works in one department as an employee, can volunteer and get volunteer credit working in PD. So, as long as they're not working and volunteering in the same department, it's okay.
The benefit to them is that they used to be paid to do that and paid into the pension plan. They now are volunteering with us to do that work. So they're allowed to continue to get additional years of credit as if they had been an employee, but only for the volunteering. So we get the benefit of the free volunteer service for minimal contribution in terms of that retirement. The employee benefits because they get more years of service, so when it comes time, they get
Probably
monthly pension.
every year it probably goes back and
yeah.
look back and they say, okay, next year you get another X dollars more
Yeah.
benefits.
And I may be wrong about this. Captain Cook's still here. He probably knows better than I don't see this growing to be like a huge number of volunteers at any point, unless you have a big plan for the PD.
The whole point of this is for the volunteers in this section is very specialized people. So we want to increase that benefit to have specialized people that can, I think, work inside the fire department, or I mean the police department, and maybe even would attract some people inside the fire department. So if you have somebody that has a very specific niche that can volunteer their time, it is a great benefit to us, and then that has this small benefit for them. And a lot of times these people work in they're in the city a lot of times, but sometimes not. I'm going to give you an off example to not talk about the employee that we have. But like in some other cities on part of their negotiations team, they might have a doctor that volunteers to be part of the police negotiation team. So we're talking very specialized people that we would have, that we would ever have. I don't ever see us having very many volunteers on the police department. So, that kind of, hopefully that kind of makes sense what we're trying to do. So when this come up, I asked Glenda, I said it'd be nice to increase the program, for these people that are volunteering their time for a very specialized need for the city, so.
And I think, don't you, probably as big of benefit as Jason was saying, is the years of credited service
Yes.
more than the dollar amount.
Well, definitely so. You got a lot of people that, you go into this profession and everything, and then maybe, people end up here and there, and you got some cities that are part of APERS, some cities that aren't part of APERS and everything, but they have so many years of credited service, but, maybe not enough where it's going to force them to have to work till 60, but if they could get some credited service somewhere else, then it would get their time where they would be eligible to retire with that. So it's a benefit all the way around to, I think, the city and to the employee, so.
So just from a personal perspective, because you were talking about a proposal, would this have to be written in an ordinance form, Jason, or was that resolution? Or,
Well, I think I'm
I
not sure
haven't gotten
exactly.
that far with it yet.
I think she's
Okay.
proposing that we do this, and the moving it from category 3 to category 4 is really what you're talking about, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
because
And
it
how exactly
already
does that make a
exists.
difference?
Pardon?
How does that change things going from category 3 to category 4, because they're already doing category 3?
Right.
So what's the benefit of switching to category 4?
It's really more, that gives them a little additional income benefit. And again, it's all based on how many years of service, not necessarily for our city, but in overall.
you were talking about a difference of $15 for volunteer?
It kind of depends, but looking in general, it's probably after 10 additional years of service would be like $50 to $60 is all per month. Yeah, it's not a huge amount of money.
And if they haven't been in Lofty, they got to do at least 10 years to get the benefit. They got to vest.
To qualify?
Yes, to vest for that. Now, they could, if they had some APERS, they could take their time of Lofty and add that to APERS to hit the amount of time. And both of them are a little bit similar, but a little bit different. Like Lofty is you just have to hit the 28, but on the APERS side, if you're pulling time from other than that, I'm pretty sure you have to hit 35 combined time.
With APERS, I know you have to have 5 years of service, and I don't know how they count that, if they count it in quarters or months or whatever. But would this allow them to go from 4.8 years? Would this allow them to add up and then become qualified for APERS?
Yeah, every month that they would volunteer is like a month of work service.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it could.
So it adds up.
Could move them from not qualified to become qualified, which would
Yes.
be substantial benefit to them. Yeah, and for a nominal fee by us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons it's not in it there as a resolution or ordinance is I just got the paperwork today to look through to do this. There's this really specific timing on when you get it approved and submit the paperwork, and it becomes effective in order to get, I think it goes from, I think it was $80. Yeah, $80 down to $86 down to $26. So we want to hit the timing so it hits the first of the year. And it has to be all submitted basically the 1st of January, or sorry, the 1st of December. So we would have to approve this in November. I just wanted it to be a
At the
discussion
latest,
item
at
this
the
month
latest, yeah.
so that we're kind of ready to go with it in the November meeting.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
So you're going to have the other paperwork that you need to move it across the finish line?
Yes, because we need to have
Ahead of
either
time.
the resolution or ordinance in November in order to hit the
At the very
December
latest.
date for January.
And then move forward, get it written up, and we consider it before we get the budget all done. And we are going to, eventually, we're going to be somewhat budget challenged, but I mean, this is pretty nominal compared to, so,
This isn't a big ticket.
yeah. Get it on the November agenda. Okay, you know what I'm going to do? Taylor, is yours going to take very long? So if you can do yours, and if you needed to go, I mean, it's, because these other conversations are going to take a while, I think. So I'm going to go, if you want to go ahead and talk about the septic failure thing that you want to propose?
Depends on the questions you have.
Yeah, I guess we'll see.
But recently, in the last couple months, I have received notice of a couple septic failures, a little bit more than usual, and so it's just kind of had me thinking of our current protocol and the current code requirements that basically derive or create that protocol. And in talking with the Department of Health, we both, Richard Murphy and I, agreed or would prefer that the ordinance reference them instead of defining it, because our current definition per the ordinance does not meet their definitions of what a septic failure is. There's multiple things, there's multiple instances that can require their protocol to be triggered, and so with the last few that we've had over the last 2 to 3 months, it's been kind of like a circle chasing situation where I would like to clean that up. The protocol is based off an inspection from the Department of Health. They determine as the septic professionals of our area and the state law lays out if it's failing. And then they would notify me that it's failing. And then I would start the protocol for it to be fixed. Because a lot of people, I don't think, realize that this ordinance exists. But if the water department is notified of your septic being failed per the current definition, which is basically just ponding on top of the leach field, then the water department is required by local ordinance to send them a 30-day water shutoff notice. And everyone I've talked to, of course, it's a surprise to get a water shutoff notice. That's a surprise in itself anyway. But for us to send that notification to the water department to notify them to shut someone's water off, I want us to be very sure that that septic system is failing. And by doing so, I would like to defer the Department of Health to confirm. And they are in all supporting of that to do those inspections for us and basically define if it's failing or not.
Are they going to be willing to do that?
Yes. And
They're
they're,
going to make a judgment call if it doesn't? Because I've been around here long enough, because I wrote this ordinance back a long time ago and sat through many discussion hours about what it means to fail. And I don't really recall all the details, but we landed on water being on top of the ground because we needed to have something objective to look at, say, look at there, done. And without that, it became very subjective in terms of what constitutes failure. And I don't recall at the time whether or not, of course, we were much smaller back in that day. I don't recall whether or not, and to what extent the health department had been consulting or helpful to us. This has obviously become a much bigger concern since then, I understand that. I just got to make sure that they have, which I'm sure they do, a standard to say, if it's this, if it's that, whatever, then it fails. They also need to have the ability to test, to provide for testing, and I assume they think they would have the authority to do that.
to test?
To find out whether or not it's failing. If there's no water on top of the ground,
Well,
how do they know?
So like their three most common failures are ponding, as we have, backing up into the house,
Right?
and then the third is creating groundwater that you can't see, and it's going into like cave systems and stuff like that below, so it's going straight into surface water. So those are the three most common, depending on the topography and soil that's there, and they do determine that. And so like right now, I'm already like, before I send my notice to the water department, I do get their support or like their identification, because also the water department wants to hear from ANH as well, but just for good measure, because again, shutting someone's water off is a big deal. I want the professional's opinion on that.
The ordinance, you know, because we're unique here in Bella Vista, our ordinance really regulates the Bella Vista POA water system.
Correct.
That's all. That's what it does. It doesn't directly regulate the citizens. What the ordinance says is that if you're providing water to a place that has a failing septic system, which we define in our ordinance now as visible water on top of the ground, then it is illegal for you to continue to provide potable water to them after we give you a certain amount of notice. And so then that prompts them to go to their customer and put a hang tag or whatever and turn the meter and lock the meter and all that. We don't physically go do that. We came up with a way to make other people do it for us, basically. So I'm trying to remember whether or not, I don't think we got sued over that one. We got sued over the sewer access ordinance, the mandated the hookup ordinance, which I didn't handle, but we got sued over that. I don't think we were ever sued about the connection ordinance. And the reason we have this connection ordinance, which is unique, is because state law already says, if you're a public, say if we ran the water system, we already have the authority to cut the water off. But because we wanted to make sure that it happened, and we didn't own the water system, we had to make sure somebody else did it. So that's why we came up with what we came up with. So we need to be very careful how we draft that, but I think we probably could do something like that.
Essentially, I just want the Department of Health to go out there and determine if it's failing, rather than me
So-
going out there as a licensed septic professional or licensed designated rep, someone who has a license from the state health department, just so we're fully sure. And they are fully on board on that, so that way we don't have conflicting definitions of what a failure is.
So it sounds good, right? Would Richard Murphy be agreeable to come and talk to us about it and reiterate that that would be their position? Not that I don't trust you, that's not it. But
I mean,
I'd
I
like to
have
hear
a-
it from, pardon me?
I have a response from writing to him I can put in the packet if we're amenable to, an ordinance change, but yeah. I
Yeah,
can-
well, you shared that,
I
yeah.
just live in Little Rock, so I try to,
Okay.
But I'm
Oh,
getting,
I didn't realize he lived in
or
North.
lives in South Washington.
sorry, I'm getting into practical here, but how do we know whether or not the sewer backed up in someone's house?
So those instances, it's normally the person, like for instance, I had a short-term rental guest call me and complain that sewer backed up in the house while they were there and they had to leave because it was so extreme. So in those cases, it's really a complaint-based structure is what it is. So
Right.
if someone complains to the city, the stormwater manager, then that is what typically will end up in a trigger to the water department.
We would continue to have the ability to say, there's water on top of the ground, this is failing. Is that one of their criteria? Or is that
It is one of them.
that in addition to something else?
It's that in addition. It's only one of the top three and there are other items as well. But it's only covering like 30% of what actually is a failure. And in some instances, when you look at the environmental impact, like when there's no room for erosion control or any kind of stable, like pollution to catch it, especially the groundwater going straight in through the cave system below or the water system below, those are, you can't see those, but those are a little bit more alarming because that goes straight to drinking water sources. So, but we don't cover that.
How would they ever know? I mean, do they have cave dwellers that go down there?
They have inspectors that go and inspect it, and I think they also pull from the department, or the state department's geologist guy. They have a guy that literally just takes karst topography, radar, and they analyze the sinkholes that are here and there everywhere, and they obviously look at those before they issue septic permits, so they're looking at it during plan review too, even before it's even constructed.
And they think they're able to find a point source location for that kind of contamination underground in a cave?
Well, groundwater,
Well,
that's just,
sewer's
like
got-
sinkholes, that's just kind of like an example of that situation.
The state has done such a wonderful job of helping us out on sewer in Bella Vista thus far, giving them more definition of what we've done, that on the one thing that we do that works concerns me.
Well, but it's just one of them, though. That's still in there, what you have written.
And that's-
in
yeah,
the
that's why I
ordinance
wanted-
right
Yeah,
now.
but
Discussion on it.
are we going to make them say that it failed, or,
That's what I'm
oh
proposing.
boy. So we no longer have the judgment call to make. We can no
change that.
longer stop it immediately. It's got to go to the county.
Well, just the failure itself is defined as defined by the ADH.
And
So
they
that
have
way
to
the
go through
definitions are
whole
the same.
process to make that determination.
Their process?
Yeah.
Well, typically, depending on the severity or like whatever we tell them, I get a response normally within a couple business days. Like they're pretty quick. The one that we had recently, they were out there that day.
So they have local people, I mean.
Yes, we have
We don't have
locals.
to rely on somebody coming up from Little Rock.
No, we have inspectors local to this region
Yeah.
that are here every day doing septic inspections for all the permits that we're issuing.
Larry?
Question is, would it make sense to leave the language like it is and then add as determined, as confirmed, as whatever by the Board of Health?
Or as,
Or as determined by the Board of Health? That way we have that provision in there.
What brought this up?
well, like I said, I've had a few of these the last couple months. I warned you this might not be short. But I had one that was conflicting. And so basically, actually I had two that happened at the same time. One went a different way with the ADH than the other one did. because of how we define it. Like
Right.
one was actually just a malfunction, it was a D-box change.
Our regulation.
Yes.
It's not theirs. So we have every right to determine what our violation is. It doesn't have to be theirs. So if we say it's failing according to our rules, their problem is they're not saying it's failing and they look bad. That's their problem. We have a much easier standard. We walk up there to the side of the lot and there's stinky water on the ground. And
Well,
it's next
sometimes
to a
that's the
septic.
same.
Can
Or it's above the septic tank, or it's in the leach field.
can a septic system be failing and not have groundwater?
Yes.
Yeah,
Sure.
could.
Well,
There you go. And we don't have it completely covered. I'm just saying.
No, this is all great feedback. This is why discussion item tonight.
I mean, I'm just.
I'll just say this is the one thing we've done in septic and sewer at Bella Vista that worked. I mean, they get that shut off notice, it's miraculous how quickly those sewer systems get fixed. It works, and now we're gonna make it a little harder for us to establish that it's not
We're just
working.
copying and just, adding on more like instances of failures instead of just relying on them.
Well,
At
if
least
we've
the top
got
three.
alternatives, that's fine.
So backing up in the
Additional
house.
ways to show it, that's a good. But if it's got to be according to their standard, we're loosening the rules. Is what I'm saying. I think it's late and we got a lot of stuff to talk about. We can talk about it a little, and I can understand a little bit more. I didn't know anything about it, but I'm sure we can write something that I can recommend to you that would weaken the rules.
All right.
Still do that.
Cool.
Fair enough.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Taylor. Okay,
Well, while she's still here, because I was just gonna piggyback off of that discussion into mine, if that's acceptable. Just to have,
you know what, let's go ahead and do it.
I don't know if you wanna announce it or whatever.
Announce what? Oh, I'm sorry. Sewer feasibility study for city council member Craig Mitchell.
Well, and that's like what I was getting at. This is kind of on the heels of discussions that I've had with Taylor and members of Blue Crane, et cetera. I know this is something that we've talked about in the past, and it gets brought up, hinted at, and then just kind of blown off. So,
Well, I want to see what you're referring to that's got blown off.
I'm not saying to you directly, Doug. I'm just
Okay.
saying that it just, okay, falls by the wayside. It just kind of, well, we talked about a year ago, establishing a sewer something committee, right?
But there was no charge to the committee made by the appointed.
Just saying.
Well, let's talk about it. We'll see what
And
we'll
that's
see
what I'm
where you're
saying.
going.
The only place that I'm going is that, just like Taylor had brought up, is that the further that we get into this thing, the older the houses get, the older the sewer system gets, or the septic system gets. My concern is that we need to start kind of building some kind of safety net or some kind of something, because what is the current, I don't know if you'd have this information, but as far as growing the sewer system for the city, we have no control over that. That's all private entity.
Mhm.
Right. So my concern is that we're gonna get into a situation, and I'm not trying to be apocalyptic, I'm just trying to have a conversation now, before this thing is just apocalyptic. Because it doesn't seem like the growth of the sewer system currently is a snail's pace. And that's not a knock on anybody. I'm looking at the camera because I just want to make sure that everybody understands that I'm not saying that somebody's doing awful work or not trying hard. I mean, it's just, it doesn't seem to me that we as a city are looking at a master plan moving forward, trying to get somewhere with this thing. I mean, I know we need a water source, other than, or we need to work hand in hand with POA to get something going. But that's why I would just be curious. I don't know, what would it take to get a feasibility study going, or what, if you could speak to that?
Well, that was kind of, the discussion that we were having, is what is the first step?
Yeah.
The first is just knowing, is it even feasible for us to ever have sewer, or sewer to a portion of the city, or, whatever that is. So, I mean, that's something that the planning department could look at in the future. If there's support on that from you all, is there's grants, which there's lots of grants around, sewer, water, that kind of thing right now floating around, especially by the EPA. But just essentially doing a study, just starting with a planning study and seeing, is it feasible for us to have sewer? Because that's really the big question, is it even possible? And so just given with all the septic discussion over the last 2 years, I know we had ADH here in 2021 and 2022, they sent us an official letter stating concern of just, the future of our wastewater management. Is it about that time? That's kind of what this open discussion item was about. Does anyone, or does everyone here start to feel that vibe that it's time for us to maybe look at a plan for feasible sewer?
So,
And if there's no interest, then there's no interest.
no, hey, you know what, there's interest in a feasibility study, is fine. I've had several conversations with Village Wastewater. And one of the reasons, you form a committee, you have 2 city council members, right? You have to announce a public meeting, and you go over to Village Wastewater, have people show up, and I don't know what type of conversation, quite frankly, we get out of them in a public setting, right? So, not much. And I can tell you where we are right now, the background, they have 1 million, it's really not 1 million, it's like 990,000 gallon system over there, and currently it's running about a third capacity, about 350,000 gallons, about. So it's not near operating capacity, right?
Does the rain affect that?
Well, it does. It goes down, whenever rain comes down the valley and stuff, it'll get up to maybe 600, 700, 800,000 gallons, but it quickly flushes through the system. I don't know how much it affects it, but they can handle another, let's just say 650,000 gallons, okay? They've been running lines. I think they might be done up Hampstead, and then they're going to go back, into those neighborhoods. So what they're currently doing, I don't know if they broke ground yet. Met with them the other day. They are going to put a 10-inch line up on 279 at Camden. They'll go to, and at Milford, it'll go reduce to an 8-inch line, but it's going to come down over the hill. It's going to probably go under Sugar Creek. It's going to hook into a pipe there, and it's going to go to Village Wastewater. Okay. And once they get that pipe in and it goes down, then they'll be able to branch into the neighborhoods of kind of the older part of Bella Vista, right? Where we know we maybe have a lot of old metal tanks, things like that. This is going to take some time for sure. The 10-inch pipe at the top at 279, what they will have the ability to do, I don't know what the timeline will be, because obviously this all takes time. The future plan is to drop that 10-inch line over the back of the hill down to Scottsdale, okay? And maybe put a lift station in there, and everything around Scottsdale, it's all gravity fed down to that line. They pump it up over the hill and down in. We're talking like, look, if anybody thinks we're talking a year or two, we're not. We're talking a period of time, right? So, just so you know, like the current plant that they have in place right now, Cooper Communities actually financed that. It was like $800,000 to put that in, and only half of it is paid off so far. So Cooper has really no interest in future investment, like in another plant or anything like that, although they do have room. Now, they looked into into potentially putting another treatment plant, much smaller, on the other side of I-49. And it was only going to be like a 100,000 gallon plant, that's it. And just to put the plant in, then to get the pipes maybe under the roadway, it was like $5 million. That didn't count running lines into the homes over there, but keep in mind, it's a 100,000 gallon plant. It's not a 1 million gallon plant. And I'm just trying to give you some idea of like costs. And this was not like yesterday. This was a year and a half ago, maybe, something like that. So we know nothing's getting less expensive. Well, that 100,000 gallon plant, I think right now they service like 3,500 homes, I believe, in all the townhomes or something like that. So 100,000 gallon plant, divide that, 3,500 by, well, it do more than that because they're only operating at a third right now. But it's astronomically expensive, right? Not saying it's not worth looking into, it is. Now, we also, as you know, have runway, really, Blue Crane runs up in the runway, right? That's how it works. I think Blue Crane's a subsidiary or something like that, Blue Crane, a runway. And they are actually looking at what their future capacity might be. And I can tell you right now, the current plant that is in place right now won't handle it. Now, how many years it's going to take, you know, for them to, whatever their plans are, you know, down Highway 71, I don't know. I'm not going to speak to that. I'm not starting any rumors, but I don't know. It's going to take a number of years. So the net of it is the feasibility of building out a sewer system in Bella Vista, we can do it. We're talking many years, and we're talking many millions of dollars in order to get it done. And then too, you're going to have to climb the hill of forcing people to hook onto the sewer system once it gets done. And that's going to be a fun conversation, you know. I'm just saying, we've been talking about this, it's like,
That's kind of what the feasibility study is.
I understand, I
Just
do
tell us
understand
what we're
that.
looking at, how
And I'm fine with that, if we want to do that.
It's just a conversation starter.
Well,
Yeah.
let me
Go ahead.
state the obvious. We don't own any of this. We're feasible to what? I mean, these are all privately owned, that we have no control over it, we have no say-so over their financials, we can't give them money, you know. So, I mean, if we want to talk about having a competing sewer system, or an additional, I shouldn't say competing really, but a separate sewer system that would say serve the far west side or something like that, and we know the typical area or the general area that's not currently being served, then that, you know, now we're talking. But, you know, one of the things that, I don't know, Larry and I talked about this one time, or I don't remember, I've heard so many conversations about this over time, and it really always ends up into us banging our head against a wall, is with most things, but would be to gauge Village Wastewater's desire to offset all of the connections, easements, flow pipes, pump stations, all that. They would continue to own the plant, and then the city would own the system, bill for the service, ultimately be responsible for the repair and replacement of all those in-the-ground grinders and all that stuff, and have a city sewer system that we contracted out for treatment. That way we don't necessarily have all the regulatory burden and the maintenance of the system. But then we've got one provider who's going to have a monopoly over our needs, and that can get expensive for our customers over time. That sort of financial feasibility in terms of that. I can tell you this generally, if we decided, hypothetically, we're going to take the Highlands, we're going to see about putting some sort of sewer treatment and connecting everything in the Highlands. And we're going to issue bonds to do it, which is going to be what it would take to get that amount of money to do it. If we put that infrastructure in, we are going to have to mandate everybody connect immediately. It's not going to be connecting when the house sells and all the rule that we have now. We're going to be forcing connection immediately. And so you have I'm just going to be very blunt with you. You have the unenviable job of spending hundreds of millions of dollars to benefit people who are probably going to vote you out of office.
Well, I don't mind, but that's kind of.
I'm just going to be honest with you.
But this would be, okay, well, at least we
That's
have
what it-
information and we have
Sure.
a conversation about it. Because it sure as heck beats the heck out of somebody that might vote me out of office saying, what are you doing about the sewer system?
Right.
And me going,
I know.
Because
totally.
it
You gotta
doesn't do us
start
any
somewhere.
good to sit here
I'm fine with
and
it.
kick the can and do nothing.
Right, and I'm not advocating one way or the other, but I'm giving some realities here, and that the one thing about a feasibility study is I don't know how long it's good. That, you know, I don't know if we're to the phase of feasibility so that we could say in the next 10 years, hey, here, you know,
Well, we
we're
can certainly
good.
sit here and at least kind of move the rock a little bit and do something other than just sit here and shrug our shoulders and go, well, you know, I don't know. You know, we're just going to wait until all the lakes are polluted and all the septic.
Well,
you know,
let's have somebody tell us how much a feasibility study would be. I mean, source somebody, how much a
And
consultant.
like, too, like, if that was something that the city pursued, staff would look for grants. There are a lot of grants out there for public sewer systems, but, you know, the whole entail not to be just assume the whole burden.
For unsewered areas, grants are probably pretty readily available to do feasibility
I
studies.
can't overstate.
You, planning studies.
I'm thinking that's probably true.
I can't overstate the potential public anger, okay? And I'm not saying it's not a reason to do it. Typically when sewer systems expand, it tends to be in a more rural area now. And that's typically the way it is. So there's gonna be a big pipe that's gonna go out, and say you're gonna have these homes along the highway, they're gonna need to connect. That gets very, very controversial, but it tends to be a limited area. We're talking about basically what's practically a fully built out city. I don't know that that's ever been done. I just want you to know what you're getting into.
No, that's okay, you know, so.
It may not, and look, you still have to do tough things, and you have to face it, and I'm not, it absolutely is a problem, but I just want to tell you, we tend to want to back down when one person calls us about something.
Well,
We will have 3,000 phone calls.
I understand that, but all I'm trying to do is illuminate what the possible reality is of, because when I do get asked, you know, what are we going to do as a community? You know, how do we, I don't know how to answer that. So what I'm seeking in a feasibility study is information. And I'm looking at what the realities are.
You want to know if it's $1 million or $200 million?
That's exactly right.
Or $1 billion.
And I'm not advocating that we as a community spend $250,000 to hand some company to give us a piece of paper saying, well, you can't build a sewer here, it's too rocky. I understand that. What I'm after is information to see how feasible would it be, or what options we as a community, as city have, as far as seeking maybe another water company or water source, or however, I don't even know how that stuff works. All I'm saying is that we've got to start moving the needle on this thing a little bit. And that's all I'm after. You know, feasibility study is a great place to start. I mean, in my mind, you know, I mean, if that's something that's financially feasible for us to get into, we're not committing ourselves to anything. All we're doing is getting information. And that's all I'm advocating.
Is the growth of Bella Vista going to be sustainable with other current conditions?
Long-term, the opinion might be, it's already been expressed, but might be that because of our small-sized lots, the fact that we only have single sites for the seepage system, we don't have any backup sites on the lots because the lots are too small, that the likelihood is we're going to be forced by contaminating the groundwater with all those systems being close together, that the state's going to come and say, hey.
And that's what I'm getting.
Mandate a moratorium on building.
Or put a moratorium on building until we do something.
Right.
And that's where the concern is with planning right now, because, you know, we're the ones that have to take, like, if you do have a failure, like, a failure is not, in some cases, a 30-day fix. Sometimes it's like a 90-day plus fix, because if this lot is 1/4 to 1/3 of an acre and that septic system's failed, that septic system cannot be repaired where it's at. It's got to get a whole new system somewhere else. And most of the time, the lots next door to this person are already built out, and there's no lots for a septic system to go on. And so that's the concern, is if there's no wastewater management, then it's not occupiable, and if it's failing, then they can't have water, and then you have a developed structure sitting there that can't be used or lived in. And that's, you know, as we keep developing lot by lot, and we keep packing these houses in, and these septic systems in, and there's nowhere for a replacement or repair to go, except the common property behind, if the topography allows it. If it's not, you know, if it's less than 55% grade, then maybe that's something amenable, but then when that happens, it's got to get several approvals, including the city, the private side, the developer, the POA board's got to approve it's on the common property. It's a very long process, if it's even possible, if a DR is even able to design something that fits back there. But
Well, the feasibility study would tell us, Jason, your idea that you just proposed about the village wastewater owning the treatment plant, the city owning the rest of it. I mean, a feasibility study would tell us that that is feasible or not.
Ask them what we determine to be feasible. I mean, it depends on the questions we ask, I would assume, and that would certainly be a question to ask.
There's a company in Fayetteville that was recommended by a member of the planning commission, Olson Engineering, that does wastewater treatment facilities and feasibility studies.
There are many consultants in our area here that practice, that do feasibility studies for sewer and water. Olson being one of them. Yeah, there's a lot of large firms who A project of our size would probably entertain some larger firms, like Olson, who is, I don't know if it's national, but certainly they're more than regional. But you'd entertain some pretty large firms that would be able to come in.
That's okay, and you can handle all that, right? I mean, you can source bids. I'm for that, I mean, let's do a
Well,
feasibility
it's
study,
not
that's
it's not a
fine.
bid, you end
know.
up with a qualification statement.
Right, I got you, but there are gonna be competing companies for it, but, I mean, if we wanna see how much it would cost us to do one, it's daunting, it's an interesting conversation, only because we've been involved in the conversation for a long time now with a certain group of people, and there is no issue with septic systems at all, they're all perfectly operational, even the state, a member of the Arkansas State Senate said that there's no problem with our septic systems in Bella Vista right now. Fought it tooth and nail. And, you know, so, but that doesn't have anything to do with the feasibility study. So I'm all for it, sincerely. But, you know, I guess after having some of the conversations I've had, it is hugely daunting. I don't even know if we could put a sewer system in 50 years.
Well,
But that's fine, that's
I'm
fine.
not even saying that.
Yeah.
All I'm trying to do is generate information
I
so
got you.
people understand, instead of giving a, I don't know.
The study gives you the document that says it's gonna take 25 years and $500 million, so.
Right.
Yeah.
So every time the question comes up, we say, well, that's what it was in
then we're
2025.
facing what the
Sure.
reality is.
You have
instead of
information.
Yeah.
Nothing.
But you
So,
also know what's going to happen if you don't do it.
well, I mean, that's, that's what I'm getting at, is that we need to pick a path.
That's an answer to a big question.
You're right. But that gives us a starting path. Which path do we want to go down?
Okay, so move forward with trying to, you know, companies that would be interested, yeah, and qualifications and bids and everything. I don't have a problem with it, that's fine.
It's not in the budget, right? You're gonna need to have money.
Correct, yeah,
So
this is
that'd probably
something that's not
be
gonna happen next
Yeah.
month.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
This was really
It's
just to kind of, yeah, feel what
Back burners.
what everyone's thinking. But something to just keep it on the front of our minds a little bit. So I think we did just that. Yep.
Okay. Tim. I don't know, 2025, wait a minute, that's a fun, I'm having this one here.
Fund balance, right?
Oh, here we go, down here it is. Draft 2025 City of Bella Vista budget, Finance Director Kim Hall.
All right, which do you want to start with, the capital expenditures or the budget? And I've got good news. This conversation won't take nearly this long, as long as either was. It'll be pretty quick. So which would you like to start with?
Take your pick.
Okay, we'll start with the capital expenditures. By the way, it does not include a feasibility study for sewer that y'all just discussed. These are just preliminaries. Everybody's gone through their first pass and given us what they expect to spend in 2025. Has anybody had a chance to look with and have any questions that I might be able to answer?
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
So you sent out the capital request form for 2025?
Yes, it was in the package.
It's in here. It's in the packet today. The draft is in there.
Because I got the August financial report, but
It was in the package that Wanda sent out.
Wanda sent out. The original
Yes.
package?
It's called her packet for today.
What time was that sent out?
Last Thursday, about 4.
I
It
got
was
Thursday.
with this one.
Is it the 10/15/24 draft?
Well, there's, yes.
That's the
Page
main-
151 of this packet. Page 151.
Here, I'm gonna give you my.
I somehow missed it. I don't know how, 'cause I got
Maybe this will
everything else.
look, what is this you're looking at?
This is
Oh, that's
year's.
last year's. Here, you can take my draft. I
I
can
missed it
speak
somehow.
to
I
it.
don't know if I did.
No, I'm good.
I missed those pages.
Did anyone anybody, I know you haven't had a chance to look at it, Doug, you know, obviously this is work in progress and, you know, everybody's reviewing and the mayor will be reviewing, you know, but this is the original draft version. We'll go through several reviews. Are there any, I presented that one first because it's usually like this, right? And if you have questions or you want to discuss it further, you know, the mayor will be, as soon as he's back, you know, or if you have questions you want to direct to me, I'll be happy to discuss it with you as well. Okay. Sounds like that discussion is done. I have one down, one to go. Save the best for last.
Is this, the one that you're looking at now that was capital, right?
Yes,
So
that was capital.
You're talking about budget.
I'm just about to talk about the budget itself.
So the capital stuff is the L item, right?
I'm sorry,
Is the L item the 20?
The L's,
Fund
Yeah,
balance
yeah.
and capital
Yes.
expenditure requests, so that would be this stuff here.
yes.
Okay, all right, that's the question.
and I do apologize, I don't know how I missed it.
Please, no,
'cause I
no
went
need to
through the whole
apologize.
packet. I don't know. I mean, I got the budget, I didn't see this. So, we had total for 2024 of $11.2 million capital requests. And we're gonna have let's just say 6 million for 2025, right? So, I guess, you know what, I guess this is my work that I'm gonna have to do, is to figure out what was in the 2024 that we completed or that got pushed off to 2025.
So, speaking of that, I've got to make some adjustments because we also got financing, the bond. I haven't quite figured out how to present the proceeds in that presentation. You know, what I was trying to do there is tell you what's on the schedule that people are asking for currently, but there will be some, I don't know exactly how I'm going to do it yet, but you know, we'll get some additional funds back because our capital will be replenished because of bond funds. Remember how it looks like we'll have about 1.8 million dollars of recaptured expenses when the bond funds in February. So that's, you know, that'll be available. I just don't know how to present it quite yet.
Okay, so
Question.
year to date, we've spent about $5.4 million on capital projects. The 2024 budget was 11,223, and we were able to take $5.4 million and we financed, right? Which takes that off the capital project list.
Not one for one.
Well,
Because what you won't see in the 25 budget is you're only going to see $600,000 on, let's talk about that real quick.
well, let me ask you this, are we gonna have a special budget meeting?
Yeah, we will have a special budget.
You know what, I mean, that's okay, I mean, I can work, we don't have to come all out.
Okay, all I was going to say is that the first pass of the fire station improvements and the admin is no longer in this capital budget because it's been fully financed. So I pulled it out of 25, right? So there's nothing about what's currently, you know, under construction is in the 25 budget, nothing. There is a $600,000 that's the planning and development remodel. There's $600,000 in 25 and $600,000 in 26 for that remodel. But that's a separate project.
Still a part of Fire Station 1.
Well, it's that location, but it's not part of Fire Station number 1. It's where the city admin offices are.
The replacement for that.
Right, it's a remodel of that.
Yeah.
But that's not listed on here.
It is listed on there. That's what the $600,000 is. Under, this is the one I just gave you, right?
Yep.
right here.
Okay, so it's in,
It's under fire, and it's specifically called Fire Station Number 1, Planning and Development
okay, I got you. It's part
Remodel.
of the $1.1 million fire that's on the total roll-up. I got you. I'm with you. See, right here? It's included in
Yes,
this right
yes it
here.
is.
Gotcha.
Okay.
It just isn't detailed on this first page.
Correct. It's not detailed on the first page.
Okay.
You need those?
No.
Okay.
Okay, so the next part is the actual budget. And normally, all I do is go through, because as you know, this is the mayor's budget, and I put together the documentation, and I help with the revenue portion, right? So normally what we discuss in this meeting, in this first meeting, is I go over the revenue highlights. So I thought I would start there, if that's okay. We've had a lot of discussions about the sales tax revenue and how that works in the city. And as you know, that there's some debate about what's going to happen next year on this topic, and we are virtually flat on county, and we're up a little on city. So I went ahead and I increased it about 2.25% in total over the current year budget. Okay, keep in mind, when we talk budgets, we talk budget to budget. We don't talk budget to actual, we talk budget to budget, okay? Because as you guys know, it's hard to take the information year to date and forecast what we're gonna have in '25, right? And sales tax is probably one of the single best examples of that. Because you know, while I happen to know, because I spend a lot of money on Prime Day, it goes up during Prime Days. It's not monthly. It's not consistent periodically. It bumps every Prime Day, every Black Friday, 4th of July sales. You know, so our sales tax goes up and down. So where it's going to be at the end of the year is anybody's guess. So what we did is we're looking at where we are compared to our budget, and then what the environment around us is doing. And the good news is that although we increased it 2.4, and that seems you know, pretty aggressive and based on where we are, the other according to the mayor, other cities and the county are saying it's going to grow faster than that next year. It isn't growing faster than that right now, but they're saying that that's going to grow faster next year. But I like to be, as you know, I like to be a little conservative. So based on where we are, it looks a little aggressive, but compared to where everybody else is, it's a little conservative. Okay? Property tax. Property tax is a little interesting. When we prepared this, we reviewed it, the mayor and I reviewed it, I think maybe 2 weeks ago, the property tax. And since then, this past week, right after we had sent it to you guys, the county came back and I noticed it wasn't, we have a rollback coming.
There's going to be another millage rollback based on the latest countywide reappraisal. So we're getting the finalized documents straight with the county. There's a little bit of a question about our new half mil that's going toward police pension and making sure that's counted accurately, or whether or not that gets rolled back. But I've been in consultation with the county attorney on that issue. But and it may be on this next week's agenda, authorizing the certification of the rollback amount. But I think the numbers that I saw were saying that our 1 mil was going to go to 0.95, but roughly. So then our 4 mils would go down, be 95% of the 4. And so what rollback is, just so you know, and it's very complicated, Amendment 59, After all the property in the county has been reappraised, if that results or would result in more than a 10% increase in valuation, then the millage rate gets rolled back so that the taxpayers do not get hit with a large tax increase. So we basically get, again, there are exceptions, and new construction doesn't count, and new millages don't count, and there are other ways. It's the whole formula has calculated. It's very complicated. But basically, you can't get more than a 10% increase based on a countywide reappraisal. They're not going to let you do it. You have, so they make us reduce the rate so that our increase is only that amount. Then when the rates get reset the next year, then we can either go back to where they were, which technically isn't a tax increase, or leave it the way they are at the rollback rate. So that's what rollback is. And we finalized another countywide reappraisal. We were notified. It was one, I think, about 3 years ago. We had a rollback then too. I don't know if you recall that.
Yes, it was the first year I see it.
Yeah, and so we've got another one. The reason for this is the skyrocketing valuation of real property in Benton County. It's going up, and so it's going to raise, everybody's going to pay more property tax anyway, but at least it's capped because of the rollback. Sorry, go ahead.
So, what does that mean for this particular presentation? What it means is that I was a little too conservative in how much I was expecting property tax to increase. So we're going to increase our property tax by another $100,000. So that because I believe that if it's going to be 10%, if the county's predicting approximately 10%, because that's their top, right? I was predicting here, I'm predicting less than 10%. So I raised it to 10%, which gives us about another $130,000, something like that. So you'll see that on the next version. It happened right after this. So I still think the property tax is pretty conservative, but even with that.
So you're going to raise it from 843 to 943. Another
I'm going to
1,000.
raise property tax from, I think it's going to, well, it's
I
going to
mean,
go
an
from
increase.
4.3 to 4.4.
Right. I'm just looking at the difference from last year to this year. So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so then the next big revenue source for us is turnback. I can't believe we still have people in the audience. Of course, I'm trying to figure out how many of them are from the city. Turnbacks is the next big revenue source, and interestingly enough, the street turnback revenue is going to go up just a little bit, and the general fund turnback is going to go down just a little bit. So they've reallocated, and turnbacks are supposed to be used towards street department. Okay, any questions about that? I mean, it's so small, it's not even worth worrying about, to be honest with you, the change between the 2 years. The last one that we usually discuss is franchise fees. The franchise fees, we're predicting a small increase, 2.2% increase. As you know, cable and telephone and those continue to decrease. Our electricity and water continue to increase. So that's been that way since I got here, and you can see it happening. It's pretty dramatic. So we're a small increase there. And just as a reminder, you guys know this, the bond that we approved last month, the $683,000 of the franchise fees are pledged towards repayment of that bond.
So are you saying that we're going to use the revenue from those franchise fees to pay that bond issue? Or it's just our guarantee of the bond issue?
No, we are required by that bond agreement to monthly, we have to transfer 1/12 of the principal and 1/6 of the interest every single month into a special account So it is not available to us, and it is available to the lender.
So we'll have less revenue from that source
Correct.
next year.
We'll have a little more revenue, but we'll have less available.
Less available because of this
Correct.
revenue bond.
Got it.
So we would have a choice of paying the revenue bond out of our capital monies and only using that as the guarantee for it.
Well, no, according to the bond agreement, we have to pay it this way.
So it's coming out, it
It
actually.
has to come out of our
All
revenue,
right, thank you.
because it's pledged, it's
It
pledged.
has to come out of the franchise fee because these aren't general obligations of the city. It
Yes.
can't come out of our general revenue.
So we
Right.
can substitute revenue for it.
Which is why you'll see it, you'll see that in the expenses, you'll see it this
See a
year.
reduction in revenue from that source.
Yes, you'll see on page 8, you'll see this year we have the debt service for the franchise fees. Okay? On page 8. So total revenue this year, we're looking at is basically 23 million, 23.1, almost 23.2 million dollars, plus $100,000. So we're going to go with 23.28 is what I'm predicting. So that's about a 7% increase overall in revenue. Any questions about any of the revenue? Then I'm just going to remind you guys how this is structured a little bit. So on page 6 is also about street department revenue. When you get to page 7, you start seeing the expenditures. And as you can see on page 8, expenditures are estimated to be at $24 million. And then you're going to start seeing the individual departments starting on page 9. Just to go backwards just a little bit. If you look at page 2, you'll see the summary on page 2 of revenues and expenditures. At the current time, that's where we are. Okay? I promised it would be shorter. I happen to know that people will be asleep if I do much more than a minute or two of finance. I can clear a room. Any
So
questions?
I know it's just a work session, we can go off and,
Yeah.
I mean, I speak yesterday.
And I'm happy to help answer.
No, that's fine, we're good, but we are going to have maybe a special meeting to
We
do
do
the
the
budget
first
workshop.
week of, Wanda, do you remember, is it the first Monday of, I think, I'm almost positive it's the first Monday of December is what's on
I
the.
really don't remember, but it was right towards the end of the year in the city conference room, city hall
Wait,
conference room.
is it the first Wednesday of
can
December
look it
or
up.
the?
I can look it up.
It doesn't matter, you
we'll
can
announce
publish it, but I just wanted, we're going to have one, that's all.
Yes.
Okay.
And I know because what's concerning to me is that, that comes right after we have Thanksgiving, and then bam, we have our meeting the next week, and then the following Monday, it's either Wednesday, I think it might be Wednesday, the first Wednesday of December, and then we turn around and we have the work session the following Monday, and then we have the regular session the following Monday. So it'll be really fast and hard in December. And you'll get another version in November to see where we are from here.
Kevin, on there, you can keep up with Bella Vista budget.
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
Do what? I said Kevin O'Leary couldn't keep up with the Bella Vista budget.
Okay, so is that it?
That's all I
Anybody have any
have.
questions
If
right now?
anybody has any questions, please, like I said, feel free to reach out.
Okay, item O, we have 2 more to go. A&P Commission financial reports, Councilmember Jerry Snow.
I just come to realize the A&P Commission is collecting $500,000 a year in revenue. I think we need a income and expense summary every month posted to the A&P's website.
No problem. But Dave, we're posted right now, but we're going to post a little more detail if you'd like. It's no worries, it's no issue. And along with our meeting minutes. And just FYI for everybody, we post when we have our meetings are typically quarterly unless there's something special that comes up. But anybody's welcome to attend anytime they want. We talk about our expenses, our income and expenses are discussed at every single meeting, the very first item on the agenda. So, no problem. Anything else? I mean, is that it?
On the A&P Commission?
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
Just as I said, an income and expense summary. When will that be started?
Put it up right now. I mean, it's actually, there's a report already there, but we'll put one out there in a little more detail.
The report that's out there is just the tax collection.
Yeah, we'll put it out there tomorrow, I guess. I don't know, today, tomorrow. No worries. Like I said, it's always available. It's a public meeting, and we openly discuss our income and our expenses every meeting. So, and also all the meetings are video or taped, just like city council meetings are. They're open public meetings, so no worries.
Well, I've always gotten one whenever I requested it.
Yeah.
But I just think it should be available to the public since it's public funds.
It is available to the public.
But by request, it's not there on the website.
Okay. All right. No worries. Handled. Okay. Bella Vista Farmers Market activity and financial reports. Councilmember Jerry Snow.
The city is contributing money to the farmers market, right?
We have a contract with a person that I guess is a company to provide the market. So what they get is a percentage contract.
So, I think we should, since public funds are being used or being committed, I think we should know what's happening. I mean, is there any kind of, what kind of activity are they producing?
Well, I can't answer it off of memory. There's a written contract that details what they're supposed to do in exchange for the money and what they get paid. And they provide an end-of-year report to us, don't they?
Yes, she's already provided it to me.
Okay. So it's once at the end of the season, then they provide a report to the mayor, which is to everybody. If you want it, we'll have it. But what they did, I don't really know all the details in that report.
She lines out how much money they took in, how many vendors they had, what kind of different events that they did throughout the season. She gets pretty detailed in all of that.
So is that available to the public?
Anything we've got in the files available to the public, as soon as we get it, it's public information.
It might be posted on the website, the farmer's market website.
Does she track the vendor sales or anything like that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'm not sure, I would have to look around for it, but if it's not, then the mayor gets a copy of
It's
it.
all too easy. You need to ask for something else.
You want anything else, Jerry? We'll put it on the web for you.
Did you say you wanted to know what was in the contract too? Is that what you
No,
said?
no, I just said that.
I think he was just asking about how
Okay.
it's.
Okay.
What kind of activity, what are they doing?
Okay.
What kind of reporting do we get?
Okay, is that it? Anything else, anybody else? All right, this meeting is adjourned, and we will meet at 6 o'clock next Monday in the courtroom right across the hallway.
Are we going to have, bring in any kind of?
Well, I didn't know what you just generalized.
We want to know what we have. Before you go there,
There's some candy in the bowl back there on the counter.
I don't think there's anything.
What time?
What time is it now? 7:45.